Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, let's cover kind of part 2 of the introduction to my new Gnosis course, which is coming out soon. And this is a course of life. How do you live a life? What are the important things? And I don't think very many people know this. There are the chosen few who come from, quote, good families who know how to manipulate the system, have the money, get their children involved in and part of the system, which you have to be part of if you want to prosper to a degree. Just that you don't want to become a slave to it, but you want to use it for its money and its facilities and the things that you need. Now, this is very rarely done. I don't know where people are coming from, but I've had serious family problems because of having a bunch of very ignorant parents that my father made sure that nobody in his family would ever achieve anything so he could always be better of them. But he had no college education. He was a, quote, professional, an aeronautic engineer, but he was on that cusp of really having no education but being able to get a job because he went to aviation high school in New York. It's amazing how they were able to do that and pull that off back then. But he never really got very far, and he was a lazy imbecile. And of course, he knew that, and he was afraid of anybody that knew anything more than him. So the point is, you're not going to figure out how to do things. And of course, as a white shirt professional, he never had any friends that were white shirt professionals. They all knew more than him. They all do better than him, and he was jealous of all of them. And it's amazing how nobody in my family ever had any friends that were basically above blue-collar workers. Now, why is that? But this is what happens when you get caught in not understanding Gnosis and figuring out how to play the game. A lot of people think college is expensive and difficult. Well, it's neither of that if you know how to play the game. College can be very easy. So this is what the Gnosis course teaches you. What are all these details to all this? But you also have to understand how society is working. What do you do in the bigger picture? Well, there's a lot bigger picture. One of the things a Gnosis or a person on the path of Gnosis has to understand and confront past the life lessons they're doing is the fact of how do you deal with a completely insane society that you're working with. This is an open-air insane asylum. Everybody is a conditioned nut job. I'm amazed as I've communicated with so many people how poorly communicative people are. I mean, they're off the deep end. I don't know how people in any way were able to survive. And again, this depends on your social status. I certainly, I forget the actual music guy. I think he was out of New Orleans and some rock guy. I can't think of, not rock, kind of pop stuff. But he said, and he's about my age, 50s, 60s. He said, well, I never listened to rock and roll in high school. I listened to Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra? Yeah, you should scream that in your high school corridors and find out what you meet from that. Nobody listened to that ever. Nobody ever listened to Daddy's music and admitted it. And if you did, you were seen a freak. Everybody was listening, smoking the dope, listening to rock and roll, and as much acid rock and other things as they could. So how he was able to function and prosper, well, I think Daddy was a DA or something. So he had a lot of money. But who does that? And I hear these things coming out where people are saying they're listening to this type. Yeah, if you're a freak, and nobody appreciates it. The older people don't appreciate the younger. Why are you listening to this crap? This is my music. So this is the kind of weird stuff you get into of how you fit into society. But we are in this mental case society where people refuse, when it's sitting right in front of them, the answer to everything which we have. We have the answers to absolutely. There's no research that needs to be done. There's no investigative. We don't need 0-point energy. We don't need all this other garbage. We don't need special medical treatments that cost a fortune and pills and everything else. This is all contrived nonsense that people fight for. Well, we need to raise another $1 trillion for research so we can figure the end of this. We have the cure for everything. It's sitting there. So what happens when you pile something? Let's say someone was actually had no water, was in the desert for days and close to dying because of dehydration. Well, you give him a glass of water and you say, here, you'll be fine. Just drink this. No, it's not water. No, I need other water. I need water that is different but looks the same. That we need to do that. We need more research on water that'll help people who are dehydrated. No, you need to drink water. That's what you do for D. So we have the answer sitting there right in front of people. And what do? Absolutely nothing. They're going to die instead of drinking the water in front of them. Now, as a person on the path of Gnosis, what do you make of this? How can you deal with a society that operates in complete insanity and fraud? This entire society is rejecting everything that will save it and will save your life, of yourself, others, your loved ones, by refusing to do this. People will not stand up and say, well, this is what we have to do. There's no rich people coming out there putting together generating plants. So I recently saw Billy Gates, the nut job, who thinks he's a billionaire and that he knows everything about viruses, injections, and everything. Well, he's a billionaire because he raped a lot of people, overcharged for his products, and didn't pay his employees enough. But yes, he has success, so he's a scientist. He's smart enough to listen to who are good. He has no scientific background. Matter of fact, he's basically a high school graduate, by the way. He dropped out of his first year in Harvard and never went back. Why would you? What is Harvard going to teach you about business that you need to know? Nothing. You need accountants, other things, you buy them. But he's smart enough to know everything. He knows who to pick. He can listen to a scientist when he has no scientific background and know if what they're saying is correct. He can analyze it enough. Yeah? Well, that's pretty insane in itself. I mean, if you want opinions on certain things, you have to go to someone who's studied it, basically, and hopefully find people of multi-opinions so you can come to a synergistic understanding of it, of what's best from it. That's Gnosis, and he's about as far from Gnosis as you can get. But he thinks he knows that. He thinks he knows because he's talked to people, because he has lots of money to set up research facilities to produce absolutely nothing. I recently saw him do a energy discussion because he's involved in everything, apparently. He thinks he's going to save the world with his Catholic German background, and daddy was a lawyer. Yeah, that's a genius. So the whole idea is that, and he's figured out ways to make nuclear power safer. Okay, well, still didn't handle the waste problems, but how they can be safer by using salt water and other things that cool down, whatever. It's imbecilic science, and it works on a very primitive level. But we don't need nuclear power. There's no place to put the waste. They put cans of that waste out in the ocean, and then they shoot them with guns so they can sink the barrels. What? Well, this is a fact, people. What's Billy Gates doing about that? Huh? You chewing some grass thinking? Yeah. So the whole idea is that this is the kind of nonsense you get. Now, as a Gnosis thinker, as a person on the ultimate path to understand things, you have to understand the insanity of it. So instead of looking into real energy out there, which is hydrogen that works perfectly, and developing that, he wants to use the technologies that are going to murder everyone and plays into the big money, because he needs more money. You know, they control him. Why? Well, what is the big money that Billy Gates needs? Well, he needs to buy, as we know, he had multiple affairs. His wife doesn't take care of him. What's new? And, of course, he needs whores and Epstein. Because he's a genius. Maybe he should work on how to find a pill that relationships are better. So all of this is part of what's going on. And as a person living in Gnosis, you speak truth all the time. So don't develop hydrogen to take dangerous technology that is worthless and can destroy the entire population and use that. Pure genius, Billy. Thank God. Good thing you dropped out of Harvey, because you're just too bright for them. So the whole idea is that these are the realities that we deal with. And as a person of seeking Gnosis, how do you deal with that? How do you deal when you have something right in front of you that doesn't need a penny more to develop or do anything with, and society refuses to force that onto use with the public, that they follow the slave, corrupted garbage that we have? And what do you do about the fact that you're living in a society that is 100% corrupt, ran by criminals and Satanists? What do you do about that? Well, these are not in any way something that can't be handled and corrected. And of course, the person who is a Gnosis understander knows that all the systems are in place to handle this and change it. Yet they're not. Why are they not? But you have to understand this on a very deep level of what actually is going on. This is truth. This isn't some sort of theory, like, oh, that's some kind of conspiracy theory. Well, what does conspiracy theory mean? Conspiracy means working together for a particular goal behind the scenes. Well, this has been happening forever. There's nothing new about that. Nothing is given to the general public. Everything's a secret. That breeds more criminal activity, and it just goes on and on. So do you understand this, and are you able to understand this at a deep level, and what do you do about it? So until everybody understands truth, understands the evil that is running this society and has from day one, well, you're never going to reach Gnosis. You're not going to understand what's going on. If you don't understand the game, then you're never going to be able to prosper at it, or you're just going to be a pawn for the big players, which is what most people do. All the stock market is controlled. All sporting events are controlled. Everything is controlled, and this is how it works. And none of this is overly hidden. All you have to do is read some books on it, listen to some ex-mafiosos, because they won't talk about it now, but they certainly will talk about 20, 30 years ago. Just like your remote viewers. Oh, I found a submarine in 1987. Well, who gives a damn about that? 40, 50 years. That's the same old rap, because that's what's been cleared for them by their CIA that they work for. So what is the truth to it all? What is going on now? How does this affect you personally? Is all part of Gnosis, because you have to be able to make right decisions all the time. This is what will empower you in life, give you the edge, and then you, the person of Gnosis, will be able to be one of those in power and able to do something. So this is what you have to understand, and this is, as I said, is an extension of Gnosis and what's going on. But these are things that are quite confounding. Why? When something is sitting directly in front of you, that directly affects your life and your family's life. This is a life and death issue. This isn't just something that is common out there. This isn't a choice for dinner of whether you want spicy or non-spicy food. This determines what happens to you, your family, everybody else you know, and society in general. Now, everybody wants to change. You know, one of the things I hear from these Scientology people, so they claim, is they went and got involved in Scientology because Scientology told them they can fix the world. And they need your help to do it, which of course is true in terms of the fact of people working together. Scientology knows nothing in the bigger picture. They have some interesting little clues, but ultimately Scientology is nothing more than a horrible organization, so it's been alleged, that exploits people. This is what it seems to be of what's out there. And most people that have been involved with it have alleged this. But that's not the point. The point is that people claim they went there because they were going to help the world. And I've heard this from a lot of people. Yet, none of these organizations do. They're there. They have the money. They have the people. Yet what have they achieved? You look at their achievements and they're virtually nothing. And this is what you'll have to understand as a person of Gnosis. Why have we spent trillions on research into medical areas that have produced nothing? Why are there $1 million paid employees a year at the Red Cross? It goes on and on. Why are we seeking cures when we have them? So all of this is a reality, and they're not being used because of political pressure, because certain rich people want to make sure that you suffer and they make money off your suffering. Now, do you understand how high-level evil that is? So to think that there are massive satanic cults and all the other things going on that are doing all sorts of things, well, Having a pharmaceutical company that hasn't really gotten a new drug in the last 10 years, and whatever drugs they ever have gotten was from public money, and then they want to charge you $700 for a dosage of these things, that's not evil. You're talking about people's lives here. People want to look at things and say, well, how terrible this is. Well, it's happening every day. They push people into the military, into combat situations, and get their legs blown off and killed for what? Then they force people to do this in the Vietnam War, where they took people out of their schools and homes to murder them for something that they had no intentions of ever winning or could win. Because there's no history of the American military winning any war ever. So the whole idea is that, but you don't know that, do you? You believe what your teacher told you, what that special on Netflix told you? Well, the point is these are lies. Now, can you handle that? Can you deal with the gnosis of what's going on? Well, that's what the whole gnosis path is about. And disillusionment is a big part of it. You're not going to grow to the next level if you think what you're in right now is already good. So you have to understand it is bad and you have to move on. So this is the kind of process that you have to go through in the understanding. So what do you do living in a completely insane society that is self-destructive, that there are billions of people and there's probably, well, who knows, 100 million people running everything, yet they get away with everything. And of course they do this through using your neighbor against you, and by the fact of that, what controls everything in this life is criminal activity. It's guns and gangs that make everything, and that's how the world works. Now, you have to understand that at a high level, and then you have to have the tools and the consciousness to know how to handle that. And there's ways of handling everything, and that's what Gnosis is all about. But these are the kind of things you have to confront in life. That you're in this most evilest society possible, that everything is presented to the society. We have everything we could possibly need sitting in front of us, and people jump over it. It just amazes me that here it is. We've solved the problem. Well, no, we're going to look at another. What do we want to look at another solution? We have the solution right here. No, that's not good. What are you talking about? This is a level of evil and insanity that is hard to fathom. So hopefully that kind of gives you another idea of what Gnosis is all about. Until next time.